Hey. See, the game is lame and absurd, but you spit. You need to sit back and observe a certified pimp. So oh, yes, he is. I mean, that boy, that's the shit. He's a mess, he is. Fresh to death. Ain't nobody fresh as he is. They can't compare or get next to him because he's so fly. I mean, the boy's so clean. From his white tee on down to those jeans. You see the ice in the pinky.
What is good, everybody? It's your man, Ken Jackson. This is a Ken Jackson Experience. Just a few minutes late tonight. Got caught up in this show that I'm watching on Apple TV called Monarch. Don't know if you're familiar, but it's a pretty good show. I'm into monsters, you know, Godzilla, King Kong, and all that shit. So, you know, had to do a little binge watching today. But anyway, life is good. I am so happy to be here. Another day, complete, fulfilled, feeling good today. Went to Miami last night to pick up my son, who's in town for a week. It's always good to have my son in town. He's going to be here till Friday. And, you know, it's a real blessing when all of your kids are home at the same time, you know, and we get to spend time together. So this week is probably the best week for me this whole year. Of course, my son's going to be back around Christmas time, but you know, like I said, it's good to have him home anytime he comes home. Now I have all of my children and all of my grandchildren are here. I just got done hanging out with them about an hour ago. And man, serious blessings, for real. I'm just happy to be here. That's my new moniker. I'm just happy to be here. You know, people take life way too serious. And I spoke briefly about this last week. You know, sometimes you just gotta not give a fuck. You know what I mean? You just gotta give it up and quit crying and complaining about everything and just enjoy life. That's what I'm on now. I'm not caring about much of anything other than just waking up every day and just doing whatever I can do to enjoy life. You know what I'm saying? Some days I don't do anything. I have a lot of lazy days now that I've been forced into retirement, but I've learned how to enjoy it. You know what? It's so funny as I have a lot of friends of mine who want to retire, you know, and they're always saying, man, I can't retire. Got to pay the bills, got to do this, got to do that. But let me tell you something. There is a way. There is a way. Because I was watching something the other day on YouTube, and the guy was speaking about who came up with the concept that we have to pay to live here on Earth, the world that we're born into. We didn't ask to be here. You know, we never requested to be here. Or maybe we did. I don't know. Because we really don't know what life was before this. And I happen to be one of those that believes that life is omnipotent. Life is everlasting. Life had no beginning and has no end. I think whatever it is, our spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call it, is just always been here. You know what I mean? It's sometimes because it's hard for me personally to fathom a beginning of time. You know what I'm saying? A beginning of the universe. You know, when did it begin? You know, they say they can look out 13 billion years or 13 and a half billion years back in time, you know, and that's only as far as they can see because of the limitations of speed. The speed of light being the fastest known speed possible, something that we as human beings will never be able to reach. Nothing that has mass can travel at the speed of light. We'd be lucky if we make it half the speed of light, to tell you the truth. But it's something that humans are never going to experience is light speed. It's just not going to happen. Now, that's not to say that we don't know what light speed is. It's not to say that we haven't experienced light speed, because I believe in our spirit form, we can probably even go faster than light. You know, and that's one of the great mysteries of the universe. You know what I mean? What is it that makes us alive? I think that's a question that will never be answered, at least not while we're in human form. I think, and because we're only here for such a minuscule amount of time, it's something we'll never know in this existence. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson was speaking on a video that I watched yesterday, and they estimate that there's been about 100 billion people that have existed here on Earth. 100 billion. But he also said the DNA has so many combinations of possibilities that the infinite that life, human life, has an infinite number of possibilities. You can't even count how many people could exist and will exist. But think about that. There's 8 billion people alive today here on Earth. There's been 100 billion people that have already lived. And it's amazing to think that. Hold on, let me see something here. I wanna look at my channel here. Are we live? Are we live? I don't know if we're live. Let me go to the home page. Back to here. And we will never see another planet. The next nearest planet is like 4.5 light years away. That's the speed of light, 4 years away. And like I said before, anything that has mass can never reach the speed of light. So a human is never going to make it to the next star system, which is called Proxima. And correct me if I'm wrong for those of you that are watching. But we're never going to see that. Not unless they come up with some way to put our asses to sleep, you know, or into some sort of stasis. But at the speed of light, our bodies would be stretched apart, ripped apart. So forget about it. I don't know why Elon Musk is spending all this money playing with rockets, you know, when somebody like him should be focused on solving Earth problems. You know what I mean? Solving Earth problems. And the United States government, we spent in 2023 $900 and something billion on defense alone. I think it was like $935 billion on weapons and warfare and things of that nature. But we could solve homelessness in America for just $20 billion. So think about that. Let that sink in. $935 billion for the American war machine so that we can possibly kill other people who may be trying to kill us, or at least they tell us may be wanting to kill us, but we kill them first. But we can spend $20 billion to put every American citizen in a home, a roof over their head. Think about that. We spend so much on destruction and death and so little on life. And life is so precious because we're only here for a minute, a blink of an eye. Unless the government knows something that we don't. Maybe they know that there is life after death, there, or afterlife, or whatever you want to call it. Who knows? Who knows what they know, because they don't tell us everything. And when I was on active duty, I seen some weird ass shit that I still haven't spoken about because I just don't know how to speak about it. And if I did, probably most of you would call me crazy. So I choose not to speak about it because I don't know how to explain what I saw. But I experienced some weird shit when I was in the Navy. And I'm sure a lot of you people out there, especially those who have served in the military, have probably seen some real strange shit. But that's life. You know, we experience so many different things while we're here living on Earth. Ups, downs, sadness, happiness, despair, pain. I mean, everything. And I don't know, so many people take life so fucking serious and they don't enjoy. They don't enjoy what this precious existence is all about. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm off the hamster wheel. I'm not chasing nobody's bag. I don't give a fuck about a bag. As long as I can eat every day, you know what I'm saying? And you know, have somewhere comfortable to lay down when I'm ready to go to sleep, which doesn't necessarily have to be in a house, you know, I'm good. I'm just good because I'm tired. I'm tired of chasing what society says we're supposed to be chasing. I'm sick and tired of you know, trying to live a life that society says that we must live in order to be successful in life and comfortable in life. It's bullshit. It really is. It really is. A lot of people are suffering now because of hurricanes that have hit Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, all the states that are affected by bad weather, dangerous weather. People are out of their homes, you know, and utilities are interrupted, and you know, it's funny when I think about it. When I think about the fact that up until about 120 years ago, we didn't have all these modern amenities, refrigerators and air conditioners and electricity and shit like that. You know what I mean? And it's crazy now that as soon as humans lose all that shit, they go into a panic. People go into a panic because let the internet go off for just a few hours. You know what I mean? People bug the fuck out. Their cell phone's not connecting, or it's crazy. Humans got through the first 300,000 years with none of that shit. We've only had this shit for a minute, in the whole, expansive time that humans have existed here on Earth. So it's crazy how quickly humankind has become dependent on these man-made things, that we really didn't need for centuries. We got along just fine, without any of this. Yeah, it's all cool. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the fact that I'm living in this time, with this type of technology available to us. But had I been born 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 300 years ago, or whenever, none of this stuff would matter because it didn't exist for us then. You know what I mean? I remember the days before cell phones. When I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones. Cell phones came about when I was a teenager. And I remember the very first cell phone I had was one of those bricks. I got it from Radio Shack. I was stationed out in Hawaii on my last tour of duty. And that thing, when I think back, that thing was expensive as hell. You didn't want to talk for more than a minute or two of somebody. You didn't even give the number out because you didn't want anybody calling you because that shit was so expensive. And I mean, you're talking about damn near $7, $8 a minute. You know what I mean? That shit was crazy back in the day. And you only had reception, like in metro areas, major metro areas in the city. You couldn't go out into the suburbs anywhere and think you was going to make a cell phone call. Hell, you probably couldn't leave a lot of neighborhoods because, it wasn't a nationwide thing back then. But now people lose their fucking minds if their phones aren't working. I remember when you actually had to be at home to speak to somebody on the telephone. You know what I mean? I remember when you had to dial and then the push buttons came and we were like, oh shit, this is dope as hell. You know what I mean? And then, I remember the first flip phone. When the first flip phone came out, I had to have one because I was a Star Trek fan when I was a kid, and that was the first Star Trek communicator, the Motorola Razr. Remember the first Razr? Man, that thing was it was expensive as hell. Only AT&T had it because really AT&T was the only cell phone company back in the day. But that was the hotness, boy. I remember when the pagers came out. Motherfucker, if you had a pager, and then you was really balling if you had the big Motorola pager that you can type on and shit. People send you a message, you could read it. That shit was fire. And now you look at that stuff now, you be like, that is some fucking elementary school shit. You know what I mean? Now we're sitting here with phones like right now. I'm watching my show, watching my broadcast on my fucking phone. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. We have seen a lot of advancements in just our short lifetime. And where's it all leading us? See, now I got a freaking ant on my microphone. I don't know where these little ants are coming from. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But anyway, we've experienced a lot of shit in our lifetime. How about that SpaceX Starship flight last week? That shit was crazy. Elon Musk, yo, as much as I talk about dude for spending so much money on rockets, that shit was dope. That thing launched and then came back and they caught that motherfucker with some chopsticks right back where it launched from. But here's my question. He can launch rockets from Earth and have them land back where they launched from. Why are they talking about it so fucking hard to land on the moon now? All these probes they send up to the moon, they crash, and they have all types of issues trying to get these things to land on the moon. You know, they supposedly have rovers way out on Mars. They just launched one a few days ago going to Jupiter. It's going to take that motherfucker 5.5 years just to get there. Just to get there, just to get to Jupiter. And you can look up in the sky at night on some certain nights, and you can see Jupiter. You can see that big glow, that big bright. It looks like a star, but it's actually Jupiter. You know. And I'm looking up at that thing the other night, and I'm thinking, there's a spaceship on its way there now that's going to take 5.5 years to get there. Wow. And I'm thinking, why are y'all going way out to Jupiter? It's going to actually one of Jupiter's moons, Europa. But they said we went to the moon in the 70s. And I forget how many moon missions they claim we sent up. But now, why haven't we gone back? You know, why haven't we gone back? And I gotta say, I'm starting to wonder if we really did land men on the moon. You know, I mean, I want to believe that the U.S. did it. I want to believe that it happened, but I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical these days, you know, because every time, you know, they talk about launching something into space now, they talk about how hard it is and this, that, and the other. But back in the 70s when the computer for the Apollo missions was no more powerful than a modern day calculator, really? But we got all of these supercomputers now and laser guidance and GPS and satellites and all of this, you know, super high-tech, you know, computing power, and we can't duplicate the moon landings? It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I'm kind of skeptical as to whether or not we really landed people on the moon. And I've seen those ships. I've been up to Cape Canaveral and have been on the tour, and I've seen the so-called command modules and replicas of the lunar landers and shit. And I'm thinking, people went to the moon in this bullshit? I don't know. I'm really starting to question that. You know, I really am starting to question that. Hell, Boeing couldn't even get a simple space capsule up to the damn space station these past few years. They've been trying. This thing is delayed about 6 or 7 years. And then when they finally got the thing up into space, the astronauts that rode it out were stranded. SpaceX has to bring them back. You know what I mean? I think they're not even coming back until February. So, I don't know. Who am I? I'm just a lowly nobody in society, you know, enjoying life every day. You know, like I said, I'm not taking any of this shit real serious anymore, except the elections. Elections are coming up in about 3 weeks. Y'all got to get out there and vote, because if this motherfucker Donald Trump gets into office, we're all in trouble. Life is going to be hard. Mark my word. Y'all think it's a joke. Y'all think he's talking shit, you know, and not. But let me tell you something. When dude gets in power, if he gets back in power, it's going to be a wrap. And y'all motherfuckers, especially black folks that are supporting him now, ain't going to be happy. You're not going to be happy if Trump's ass gets back into the White House. So pay attention. I don't give a damn what you think about the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris or whatever, but let me tell you something. She is a far, far, far better choice than Donald J. Trump. Because if Trump gets back into office, we are quite possibly looking at the last American election in our lifetime. I'm serious. I am so serious about that. And it saddens me when I see so many people supporting this clown. Dude is a clown. He has no business being in charge of anything, not even his own fucking businesses, which most of them have failed. He has been a grifter all of my life. You know what I'm saying? A con man. And I got relatives that are supporting his ass. I'm ashamed to say. I know other veterans that are supporting him. I'm ashamed to say. And don't get me wrong, I served, and I was proud when I served in the Navy. And I actually believed in what I was doing when I was in the Navy. And I still believe in what I did while I was in the Navy. I believe in this American experiment that we live in. Because contrary to popular belief, America has progressed a whole lot from its violent and bloodthirsty, thieving ass beginnings. Shit wasn't so nice for people that looks like me. Hell, just 80 years ago, shit wasn't that great. But it's a whole lot better now than what my grandparents went through, than even what my parents experienced. I remember as a young kid, encounters with the Ku Klux Klan, when we were traveling across the country, going to visit family in Arkansas and Texas, and running through some of these dark roads in Mississippi and Alabama. And let me tell you something, I was just a little kid, but I remember some of the fucking scary shit that we encountered as a black family going down the highway. That shit was real. See, the problem with a lot of these young people now is they've never experienced that shit. So it's not real for them. That's why it's not a priority in their lives. But they don't understand. There's people in power and people trying to get into power that want to take us back to those dark days. That's what they're talking about when they want to make America great again, because it was great for them and their people. Wasn't great for us. But we got to fight for America. This is the only country we know. If you're born and raised here, knock off the bullshit talking about going back to Africa. Motherfucker, you never been to Africa. What are you going back to? I've been to Africa. Been to several countries in Africa, in the continent of Africa. So when you say you're gonna go back to Africa, what country you going back to? Do you know? Tell me which country you're gonna go back to. Because contrary to popular belief, a lot of them countries ain't so nice. They're really not. I know you've seen the beautiful pictures of the beautiful cities in Africa, and the beautiful neighborhoods. And what you don't realize is those are gated, highly protected areas within Africa. You get your ass out there in the bush, in some of them villages, and in some of the back country, and trust me, you'll be busting your ass to get back here to the States. You really will. And that's not to say that Africa is not a beautiful continent, because it is. There are many, many beautiful countries and beautiful areas, not just in Africa, but all around the world. And I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to be able to travel around the world. I've been to Hong Kong. I've been to Singapore. I've been throughout Malaysia. I've been to Thailand. I've been to South Vietnam. Or I've been to Vietnam, period, because there's no North and South anymore. The Philippines. I've been to all 50 states in these United States. I've been to Canada. I've been to Mexico. You know what I mean? Oh, man, I've been to the Middle East. I've been all around this world. Very fortunate to have been able to go to a lot of countries in my short life and enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of the travel that I've experienced. But there's no place like home, and this is home for me. I was born in Oxnard, California, raised in Plainfield, New Jersey. These United States is the only home I know. My parents were born and raised here. My grandparents were born and raised here. My great-grandparents were born and raised here. I am American, not African American. I am American, and I'm proud of that. I'm very proud that I'm an American. And you should be too, if you are. You should be definitely proud of your familial heritage. Absolutely. But we as Black Americans, we need to be proud of being Americans. This is where we're born and raised, and we need to fight to make sure that we can continue to exist here, free, comfortable, with opportunity to pursue whatever it is we choose to pursue. We got to stop this bullshit with searching for so-called lost identities and yo, every culture on this planet has been disrupted in some way or another, and it wasn't always just by white people or Caucasian people. If you look at the histories of all of these nations, they all have had their feudal times. Chinese have had a very bloody history. Japan has had a very bloody history. A lot of African nations have had very bloody histories. Absent of Europeans. Europeans have had very bloody histories. This entire world has had a very bloody history. But only thing we all have in common, though, is that we are all earthlings. I don't give a shit what border, state, or city, or whatever you've come from or grew up in. We all are earthlings, human beings. There ain't nowhere else that we can go. So we better figure it out real quick, how to get along and coexist on this little blue ball. And that's right, it's a little blue ball. I think next week I'm gonna go find an old picture that I had of Earth that was taken from the Voyager space probe that's now literally in interstellar space. It's outside of the solar system. But this picture I used to have, I got it in my archive somewhere, showed this little tiny blue dot and nothing around it. Nothing even close. And everybody that you and I have ever known to exist is on that little blue speck in space called planet Earth. So let's knock off the bullshit, people. We got to learn how to live together and be happy together and coexist, because there's enough here on Earth for everybody. There shouldn't be any suffering. There's no reason we got to be fighting and struggling just to live. But since I went way off on a tangent, let me bring it back into what I originally was speaking about. The guy that I watched that said, why do we have to pay to exist? Have you ever thought about that? We literally have to pay to live. And there used to be a time when we didn't. But this country and many other countries are making it near impossible now to just live, because they've made these rules up, these rules of society and culture that we all have to follow by law. Like now in Florida, you can't camp on public land. A lot of people don't want to buy a house. Many people don't want to spend all this money renting an apartment that most of us can't afford in the first goddamn place. Many people just want to live a simple life. Like back in the day when there were just log cabins and horse and wagons and shit like that. They were living just fine. When cowboys and settlers and travelers used to ride across this country on a horse and sleep and live under the stars at night. But you can't do that now in most of this country. They'll arrest you for sleeping in your car somewhere. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. There's a lot of people in this world who don't need all these modern amenities that we have, that are really forced on a lot of us. Because if you live within city limits, you have to have your home hooked up to city utilities, which you have to pay for. If you don't, they'll come condemn your property and take your home away from you. And speaking of which, there's no such thing as a private homeowner. Every single piece of property in the United States is owned by the government. Yeah, they call it public property, and they've sold us the illusion of owning a home. You know, the American dream, owning a home. You don't own shit. Because if you buy a house and you spend 15, 20, 25 years paying off your mortgage, you finally get your mortgage paid off, guess what? You still have to pay property tax. And if you don't pay property tax, guess what's going to happen? They're going to come take your house away. They're going to come take your land away. If you don't pay that tax to the government. So nobody in America owns a home, regardless of who you are. Because the government can come take your shit away anytime they good and goddamn please. And I want you to really think about that and let it sink in. Now, here is the problem, too. They tell us the power is in the people. And you know what? That's very true. The power is in the people. But the problem is you can't get the people to come together to fight the power. Look at our whole political situation right now. They keep us fighting amongst ourselves. Right now, this country is split almost right down the middle. Split right down the middle. One half wants to live a certain way, and the other half wants to live a certain way, and those two halves are clashing because they don't want to live the way that the others live. Both sides talk about freedom, but both sides also talk about taking away your freedom to do whatever it is you want to fucking do because it doesn't line up with their freedom. Think about that. Think about it. Both sides talk about freedom, or both sides want to take away your freedom too. What gang are you in? What side are you choosing? Unfortunately for me, or fortunately for me, however you want to look at it, I'm supporting the blue rag. Can't support them red rags because those motherfuckers want to take us back to a time that wasn't good at all for people who look like me. And I hate to put it in those terms, but the government literally was the first gang. The government was literally the first incarnation of the Crips and the Bloods. You got the Republican Bloods and the Democratic Crips, and that's where it all began. Actually, there were a couple of other political parties back in the day. George Washington was a member. Oh man, what was the name of that party? I need to look that up. Let's see. In fact, I'm going to use some of this AI right now. What was George Washington's political party? Uh-oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Damn it. I swear I'm fucked up. All right, let me do that again. What was George Washington's political party? Okay, George Washington was an independent. Hold on. What were the political parties at the time the Constitution was ratified? Okay, so they had the Federalist, which was the supporters of Washington. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. And the opposition were the Democratic Republicans, which basically were the Republicans. Think about that. And then there were several other parties too. Let's see, because parties were real fluid back then. Let's see, the Federalist mostly represented New England and the Mid-Atlantic states, while the Democratic Republicans were dominant in the South. Ain't that crazy? Ain't that crazy? Then let's see. There were man, what were they? Oh man, I can't remember. The Whigs, WHIGS, the Democrats and the Whigs adopted the first party-based customs in the Senate back in the 1830s. The Whigs, yeah, they had some crazy names. What else were there? So think we had the Democratic Republican Party, we had the Democratic Party, we had the Whigs, we had the Federalists, and there were a few others. But right now we have this two-party system that's a massive failure because, like I said, both sides, I mean, the country split right down the middle, you know, Republicans or no, Democrats on the left, Republicans on the right, left wing, right wing, same goddamn bird. How many one-winged birds do you see flying? Here we are, we got a two-winged bird that can't fly worth a shit. In fact, the government's like a fucking ostrich. They can flap their wings, but they ain't getting off the ground at all. But anyway, November's November is coming up, in 3 weeks. It's time to vote, y'all. Please get out and vote because your vote does matter. It really does. You got one side fighting to keep you from voting, and you got the other side doing everything they can to get your vote. You know, and people are mad about that. You know, it's crazy. But anyhow, again, here's the question: why do we have to live, or why do we have to pay to live? And we got to pay for everything. I can understand paying somebody, you know, that built something for you or is providing your service for this, that, or the other. But what if you don't want any of those services? What if you don't want running water in your house because first 300 years, 250, years of this country's existence, there was no running water. There wasn't solar power. There wasn't electricity or refrigeration. There was no sewage systems. But we're forced to use all of these things now with the threat of having our homes taken away. I remember as a kid visiting my grandparents down in Arkansas on my mother's side of the family. They didn't even have a fucking bathroom in the house. They had a fucking outhouse. And it sat over a hole in the ground. You know what I'm saying? That was it. We got the same thing now. It's called the fucking porta-john. Think about that. But somebody comes by in a big tanker truck and they empty him out, every, few days or weeks or however often it needs to be done. But them old school outhouses, they just filled up the goddamn hole, and then when it was too full, they picked the motherfucker up, dig another hole somewhere else, and move the outhouse to that hole. It sounds crazy as hell now, but that's what it was. And even going back even further, I saw a show, and they were exploring like some ancient ass city, and they showed what the bathroom was like. Crazy. they actually had bathrooms in some of these old Roman cities and these old Aztec cities and shit. And it was basically a room with a hole dug in the ground and you know, a little area where you can sit on, you know, and squeeze off your turds into the hole. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure, you know, they had some sort of a primitive sanitation system going on in a lot of these places because, you know, people got by for centuries, long before we had any of these modern amenities. I imagine the world back then was a whole lot, well, not imagine, I know it was a whole lot different back then. Before the Industrial Revolution, when things supposedly got all better for us because of technology and industry and machineries and shit like that. But did it really make our lives better? I think it just made our lives more stressful. You know? The only thing better now about our lives is the fact that I don't have to worry about, you know, a bunch of white people jumping on my ass and beating the shit. Oh, yes, I do. The police. Still gotta worry about that shit. God damn. Ain't nothing changed. I thought shit changed, but ain't nothing changed. Wow. That's something to think about. All right, well, anyway, I'm just rambling tonight because I just had to. You know what? And that's the great thing about having this channel. I can come on, I can ramble if I want to. And honestly, I don't care if you log on and watch. You know, you can watch it later, you know, if you decide to. And who knows? I might say something that might be useful to you. Then again, most of the time I'm not saying shit. I'm just talking. But ain't that what we all do? We just talk. But this is my therapy. I get to get things off my chest, whether it makes sense to you or not. And I'm happy to do it. I'm having fun because I'm not taking life so goddamn serious anymore. All right? I'm your man's Ken Jackson. This has been the Ken Jackson Experience. Tune in next Sunday. I promise next Sunday I'm actually going to have a formatted show for you. I got a very, very hot topic coming up, which I will be putting out some ads throughout the week. And hopefully y'all will log on, tune in, watch, listen, join the chat. Phone lines will be open, so I'll be able to take live phone calls. I want to talk to y'all if you feel like talking to me. All right, so next Sunday, 9 p.m. right here, youtube.com/crazybabytvworld. You can watch the replay at www.crazybabytvworld.com. Please, 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 if you come to the YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up, you know, subscribe to the channel. It don't cost you a thing. I don't need one single penny from any of you. Help me out on the algorithm. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, I don't say much, but something I say might help somebody. And that's all I ask. Help me. All right? So until next week, I'm your man's Ken Jackson. This has been the Ken Jackson Experience. Peace. See y'all next Sunday.